Hey folks, due to some of the conversations going on in the eczema healing community this week, I feel compelled to make a video about food sensitivity testing. Now, food sensitivity is the same as food intolerance. They are interchangeable, so I might be talking about those things interchangeably in this video. Now, the reason why there are such strong opinions surrounding food sensitivity seem to be centered around three main reasons. The first reason is that some people feel a little bit ripped off from having taken food sensitivity tests and they feel like their results weren't accurate. Other people feel like doing food sensitivity testing absolutely changed their life. And then also the third reason is that food is just very close to our hearts. Food is a strongly associated thing with tradition and custom and taste. And so we don't like people telling us what we can and we can't eat. Due to the nature of the food sensitivity testing marketplace, it is easy to sell products that tick all the right boxes but don't necessarily have any scientific or medical approval. And so there are companies out there that are really taking advantage of this situation and providing services that don't really give us any usable or actionable information. For me, functional medicine is the litmus test. I will only run tests in my practice that a functional medicine doctor would run in theirs. Why? Because they have a license to lose. If they don't work within medical and scientific literature guidelines and government regulations, then they could lose their license. And so, they're dealing with life and death situations. And I'm not dealing with those same situations, but I still believe that that's a good standard to practice by. Now, these tests obviously are more expensive, and there is a pattern. And generally what I've noticed in this industry is you get what you pay for. There are tests out there that seem to offer the absolute world, and they will give you metrics on all kinds of markers in your body for a shockingly small amount of price to pay, but they're just not going to provide you with that same accuracy and actionable information that you're going to get from tests that are run by functional medicine doctors. With all that being said, having accurate data to work with is only half of the battle. Really, where the magic happens is in the analysis and the interpretation of the results. So let's say you've got a food sensitivities result back and there's 25 foods on there which have been flagged up as red. What does that information really give you about a person, aside from the fact that these foods have created an IgG response in their body? Well, they give you some indications about inflammation in the body, maybe the tendency for undigested food to be passing through the body. There might be some indication there about intestinal hyperpermeability and just an overall lack of digestive ability overall. And so all of this information can be discerned from an IgG food sensitivities test when run in conjunction with some other tests, and also when run with a strong amount of clinical correlation. So literally spending time with the client to figure out what's really going on for them. That's really where the magic happens in this stuff, and that really is where the value lies in lab testing. It's in the interpretation, it's in the clinical correlation, and it's in cross-referencing with other lab tests. So that's why we choose to run several lab tests with people when they sign up to work with us, because we want to look at as many different areas in the body as possible, and we want to triangulate, if you understand what I'm saying, the information that we get. So here's an example for you. If you're trying to get a car to a roadworthy state, you're not just going to check and work on the tires. You're going to be checking the structure of the body of the car. You want to check the oil, the condition of the engine, the other fluids, maybe the seat belts, the steering rack or the column. There's so many different things that you could look at to make sure the car is roadworthy. And that's why we look at as many areas and systems in the body as we possibly can and identify healing opportunities across all of those systems. I sense a bit of confusion in the community between sensitivities and allergies. And if you've been tested for IgE immune reactions, those are allergies. And if you've been tested for IgG, that is for sensitivities. And really, the people that have trouble tracking foods that they're reacting to because of a delayed response, that is a food sensitivity or a food intolerance. And these are the people that are seeking out food sensitivity testing, and they tend to go down the lines of doing an IgG test, and that usually involves a fingerstick blood prick test, and you send a bit of dried blood off to a lab to have it analyzed. But you know, when you're having trouble tracking your food, maybe you're keeping a bit of a diary, you're trying to figure out what's going on. I've got to tell you that doing an IgG food sensitivity test, it's not just as simple as that. In my opinion, running an IgG food sensitivity test to compile a bad foods list for somebody is only really valuable when you combine it with a detailed food and flair diary that the person has kept. There must be clinical correlation there in order for that to become valuable. My main reason, honestly, my main reason for running and continuing to run IgG food sensitivity testing with my clients is the information it provides around the intestinal health of a person, the inflammation, the overall ability to digest food. If there are IgG reactions coming from whole foods in the body, that is a bit of an indication that there's some digestive dysfunction going on, and that information is just as valuable. Even though it might not give you this ideological bad foods list of foods to avoid or list of foods to eat, which is, you know, ideally what you're looking for, as a practitioner looking at you from a holistic standpoint, the value of the IgG information is still strong, it's still high, even though it's not giving you that list that you so badly want. If you're showing signs of food digestion and assimilation problems from an IgG, then we can cross-reference that with the other labs and also our assessment of, you know, how you present to us as a client, the sorts of things you're talking about, how you're feeling. You know, we'll be talking about meals and just how that goes for you and your bowel movements, your digestion and transit times, and a lot of that gives us clues as to what is really going on and the action that we need to take. The absolute benchmark in food sensitivity testing is something called the MRT, the mediator release test. And this tests your blood, so you need an actual blood draw for this one. And that needs to be sent off to a lab and analysed. And the reason why I don't run this on people in the UK is because the lab for the EU is based in Poland, and you need to get blood to that lab pretty much overnight, within 1 day, because it's a fresh blood sample, it's not dried like the IgG is. And so it's really a logistical reason why I don't run that lab more often for people in the UK. However, it is my go-to test for people within the US and people who can get that blood sample to the EU lab within the 1 day time frame. The main difference with the MRT is it tests foods independently from the person. So with an IgG, you do have to be eating the range of foods that you want to be testing for in the run-up to running the test. Whereas with the MRT, your blood is taken away to the lab and it's tested independently for a range of immune responses when it's presented with those foods. Zoomers are another kind of food sensitivity test, and they go down to a peptide level. So they're not just looking at whole foods, they're looking at the broken down version of those foods as well. Data which can be extremely valuable, especially when you feel like somebody might be cross-reacting at a peptide level to different foods. They're called Zoomers. It's another way of just doing a food sensitivity examination. But again, they are a little bit geographically limited as to who is able to get access to those tests. So there's really no such thing as a perfect test. They're all different, they all give you different information. While an MRT test may be the go-to for generating a bad foods list for a person, it's the most accurate in that sort of a way, it's perhaps not as useful as an IgG in providing intestinal health information, which in certain cases, you know, in certain symptoms on display, that might be more helpful information. So really, where the magic happens with this stuff, with food sensitivity testing, is in the analysis, the interpretation, and with the clinical time spent with the person to really figure out what's going on. If you're interested in finding out what food sensitivity tests might be available in your geographical area, then please get in touch with us. Our email address is hello@thevitalityproject.co.uk, or there's a link down below to our website and you can use a contact page to get in touch that way. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.